years ago. Just saying.
Good evening and welcome to our school committee meeting of this Wednesday, January 16th, 2019. It is 7 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Remind everyone that we are being broadcast live on cable as well as recorded for future rebroadcast. At this time, I'd like us all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First up, we have our student representatives from the middle school. We have Katie Hoffman and Lainey Bean, please.
Hello, thank you for having us tonight. My name is Katie Huff, and I'm a 7th grade student. And I'm here along with Lainey Bean, who is also a 7th grade student. We are here from the Douglas Middle School to discuss the current events throughout the past month.
Starting with sports, we will dive into cheerleading. The cheerleading team has been decided, and the girls have been working tremendously hard. They are trying new techniques for their routines and are performing many new stunts. They have performed at all of the home basketball games and are doing their very best at providing very exciting halftime routines.
The girls' basketball team received their first win of the season against Whitensville Christian, winning with a total score of 31-32. The girls pulled another win yesterday against Hopedale, winning 18-21. They have also played against Misco Hill, BMR, and Uxbridge. The boys' basketball team has shown grit and determination through their season. They have won 4 games so far and are preparing for another next week. Their most recent win was against Hopedale, coming out with 57-55.
In another area, Student Council had a successful Winter Olympics and is now preparing for the Valentine's Day dance, which is taking place on February 8th. This dance is put on to encourage friendship, and we are hoping students dress in nice attire. We are also planning a fundraiser this month to help support the Douglas Dog Orphans.
The yearbook committee is in the process of working on the first 16 pages of their book, and are also collecting the 8th graders' infant photos for the yearbook to look back at priceless memories.
There are 2 students in 7th grade named Katie Huff and Emily Hamlin who have been collaborating with our guidance counselor to form a new organization in the middle school called Best Buddies. Best Buddies is a nonprofit organization dedicated to ending the emotional, physical, and mental isolation of approximately 2 million people with disabilities in the U.S. They have enjoyed a successful start, receiving $500.
Lastly, our 8th grade students have been working very hard to keep their grades up, and some have recently passed in their BBT applications. They've also had a field trip coming up at the Hanover Theater to attend a performance titled Thurgood, explaining the life of Thurgood Marshall, who was the first African American to sit on the Supreme Court.
The 8th graders have also been working on their presentation skills by presenting monologues from the novel Good Masters, Sweet Ladies. This book ties into their history unit on the medieval time period.
Students this past month have been working hard to fulfill our monthly character trait. This past month is to be adaptable. When talking about being adaptable, it means to be able to change and work with the conditions that you are under. This February, our school will be working to become more independent, as in taking actions for yourself and dictating your own choices. The Douglas Middle School is taking part in their community and are planning to make our school even better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Appreciate
Thank you, ladies. Great job. Thank you. A lot of things going on at the middle school.
Have a good night.
I heard that word grit again. That word
Yeah, I
grit's always
Yeah.
helpful.
It's good. It's
Great.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, next on our agenda is our public comment and communication. The school committee welcomes public comment on items that are within the scope of the school committee's responsibilities. The public comment agenda item is reserved for this purpose. For anything not on our agenda tonight? Is anyone here for anything not on the agenda? No. Okay, thank you. With that, any old business the committee would like to address? Any new business? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Mr. Maines.
Thank you. If I could just begin by extending our collective condolences to Mrs. Socia. Her father passed the last week down in Florida. So Mr. Robert David Sr. Services will be on Sunday. There's a service in Webster, but just wanted to let everybody know that he had passed and offer our condolences to Cindy and her family. First thing on my superintendent report is the Scholars Luncheon, which Mr. Romano and I participated in on Tuesday the 8th. Each year, schools in the Blackstone Valley bring a representative, a scholar, to be lauded by the Superintendent's Association. This year, our guest was Maureen Grady from Douglas High School. She is a scholar. Also, as you can imagine, it was held at Holy Cross, which is always a nice venue for us. It's a great event, great opportunity for people to meet others and hear what other people are doing in their schooling and where they're going and so forth. Maureen fit right in perfectly with them. Strong student, strong athlete, terrific young person. Wonderful event. I just wanted to share with you that I thought we had a wonderful time, and congratulations to Maureen. Our PD Day is coming up on Friday. Had my arm twisted a couple of times the last couple of days. The staff has been invited to wear Patriots garb because it's a professional development day. So I did send out an email to the staff on that. I wanted to share with you what the agenda is. It's a full agenda. It will begin at 8 o'clock here at the high school auditorium, and that would be district-wide. So it will include with us our cafeteria people as well as our custodial people. Even our nighttime custodians will be attending as well. That's from 8 to 9 o'clock. We will be reviewing the safety plan, which I believe Mr. Romano is going to share a little bit of that with you tonight. At 9 to 10:30, we have a group called Children's Friends who will be coming in. They will be doing a district-wide presentation on social emotional issues, of which there is a very serious concern for us to continue further professional development with this concern that is definitely prevalent in our schools. Doesn't seem to be subsiding at all. From 10:45 to 11:45, all staff will return to their buildings. At which time we will do a review of the lockdowns and the ALICE protocols and other safety drills. This time, however, it will not be as we have done had done previously. It's more of a walkthrough. The goal with that is to refresh the memories of those who were there last year. But also, we have quite a number of new staff. From paraprofessionals to teachers and so forth, who have not had opportunity to be exposed to it. So it will give us an opportunity to walk them through all of the drills and get them familiar with our safety protocols. There will be an opportunity for lunch. At 12:30, it will be building-based professional development. The primary school will be focusing on coding and robotics training. The elementary school will be doing some data analysis around math and to support curriculum planning. The middle school will be doing some technology integration. The NWEA assessment, which I believe Mr. Delaney shared with you recently at a meeting, is an assessment tool that we have secured that will give the teachers some great benchmark information. So they'll be spending some time working with it and getting familiar with it before they implement it. The high school will be doing some co-teaching, as well as doing some work on the MCAS writing, structures and strategies, which will be presented by a couple of the teachers. And for our psychologists, school adjustment counselors, guidance counselors, BCBAs, OT and PT, and our nurses, the Children's Friends group will be coming back from 12:30 to 3 to go into greater depth, answering a lot of questions and providing additional support for those frontline people dealing with students with social emotional issues. So it's a very full schedule, and that is our schedule. It's Friday this week. And then the only other thing I had under the superintendent's report, and I'll call Mr. Romano up, is to give us an update on the committee that's been working since September, and will continue working probably through June to finalize a very complete safety plan, which we would then be able to present on opening day when we return to school next year.
So this the school safety committee, which is chaired by Mr. Vega, he's sick, and Officer Filoni, who is actually working the game downstairs. So they asked me to cover down for them tonight. The committee also includes Ms. Keegan and Mr. Collette from the school departments, and then the police and fire chiefs also are part of that. The purpose of having this committee was basically two things: to come up with a set of uniform formatted plans for all the schools for various emergency situations, and then to coordinate our emergency plans with the highway, fire, and police departments, so that you have all the town departments that are going to have a role in a crisis situation together, planning and sharing resources and ideas. Some of the work we've done so far, we identified multiple emergency scenarios that could happen in the school, and we put in place sort of the goals of our response and the steps that we would take for those situations. So there are things like the whole spectrum of emergency things that can happen at school, from a missing child to a gas leak, fire, weather emergency, intruder in the building, bomb threat, any of those types of things. And we've worked out protocols, basically, that school leaders can follow to kind of a step-by-step response to it. Because when something bad happens, you don't always have all your faculties with you to plan out what you need to do. And it's just a way of making sure that you don't miss anything. You just look down, step 1, I need to do this, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that way you don't miss anything. You don't have to kind of figure out the plan as you go. We also identified who would be involved in our incident command system. So who are the key players when we have to respond in emergency situations? So for example, Mr. Maines would probably manage anything with the media. Ms. Keegan would manage transportation assets if we need to bring in transportation things. She knows how to do that. You just looked away. Oh, okay. I thought she was looking like, what are you talking about? But just sort of those steps that people would have in terms of liaisoning with different people. And we also collected documents for the incident command system. This is what Desi's working on right now. So he has floor plans for each school with a master schedule. We're posting the room numbers in each room facing out, so that when emergency responders have to come to the school and they hear, well, there's an incident in room 212, well, they can figure out where room 212 is, because if you've come here for parent-teacher conferences or anything, sometimes it's a little hard to navigate your way around the building. So if you're the police officer responding from another town, or who just doesn't have a lot of experience with the building, you lose a lot of time trying to find room 212. So we stole that idea from another school, and I think that it's worked out really well. Desi, Brett, and I also did a review of the report on the response to the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting. And we looked at the areas of weakness that were identified at Stoneman for areas that we need to look at. So I know a lot of the analysis of what happened there has focused on the police response, but there are some criticisms of how the school responded to things. And so we wanted to make sure that whatever flaws that they had in their protocols, we've found a way to address them here. So for example, the camera delays, the video cameras, the security cameras at Stoneman Douglas were on a 20-minute delay. And I'm not sure what practical purpose that serves, but nobody in the office and nobody in the responders knew that. So they were watching video from 20 minutes earlier, thought that the gunman was still in the building, and he was actually at that point at the Starbucks where they arrested him, but they thought that the situation was ongoing. So things like that. I mean, that wasn't a problem here, but some other issues that they had is staff didn't know how to initiate a lockdown from their rooms. So we've kind of come up with a trick that we'll implement so that everybody in the building will know how to use the intercom system on the phone without posting it right by the phone, so that every student can then get on the intercom and serenade the school. We also, and blind spots in the classrooms, that's another thing, so that the idea is you lock down the room, but there's windows by the door. Are there areas where students would still be vulnerable? We want to make sure that every teacher has within their room an area that's marked, so that if a sub is in there, to be where kids can be and be basically the safest spot in any room. So sort of those lessons learned from the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting. We also planned out drills. In the past 2 years, we planned out drills and training for staff and students district-wide. And Mr. Vega and Mr. Filoni have actually taken their training, and they've gone to other schools and kind of brought those ideas to other schools too, along with the drills that we use with students. And I think it's been, we've tried to really make it, we don't want to traumatize people as we go through these drills, and we don't want to make it something that's going to cast a shadow over the school in doing this type of thing, but at the same time, making sure that students are as prepared as possible, so that everybody knows the exits to get out of the school. They know what to do. If this exit's blocked, they know where some other exits are. They know what to do in the cafeteria and places like that. And then finally, Mr. Vega and I went to training on reunification, which is the idea of getting students after an incident, getting them back to their parents. And I had always thought, well, yeah, the parents show up, they pick up their kids, and they go home. It's a lot more complex than that. And I think it kind of blew Desi and I away, the idea of what exactly is involved in that. And that really is the piece that school leadership owns, is that reunification piece. Because if there's a crime scene essentially in the school, well, the police chief now owns the school. If there's a gas leak, well, Chief Vincent probably owns the school at that point. Nobody's going to listen to what I say. But Chief Vincent isn't going to be in charge of getting kids back to their parents. That's going to be my role. And there's a lot of things that go along with it, especially with the younger kids, of ensuring accountability and making sure that every child gets to every parent and gets to a parent that they're supposed to go to. And so we have gone through this sort of standard reunification model that Desi and I were trained on, and how to do that. And that is a big piece for the school to own. And I've reviewed that with the other admin, and we kind of need to work out those plans still, but that's kind of the next step that we're going to. So it's still an ongoing process, and there's a lot of things that we've had to kind of go through. But I think it gave, for Mr. Vega and I, for example, it gave us a better understanding of what's the police department going to do, and what does it look like when mutual aid comes in, and how does the highway department play into this? How do we isolate the school site to keep the media away and things like that? And so I think it's been mutually beneficial to everybody, and it's good that we have that partnership between the different town agencies. It's been really helpful. And the town administrator came to a couple of meetings too, so he's kind of looped in on it too.
And thank you, Josh. It's a big task. There's no question about it. I'm thinking of the progression that we've undertaken over the last 10 years or so. When Newtown occurred, as you know, we put in new protocols to address lockdowns and external lockdowns, internal lockdowns, and we drilled those, and then with the Alice training that we had put off for a couple of years, and we went in, and we have a number of teachers here. It wasn't kid stuff when we trained on it last year. It was very realistic, and it was really very intense. But the purpose of that was to get us better prepared should something like this happen. And then this is the next progression to that process that we've undertaken, and this is a much more inclusive plan that we're trying to put in place. So it is a huge task. Got a lot of dedicated people working on it. We have had, unfortunately, 2 experiences with reunification situations that have occurred, nearly at the ECC at one point, and we had one here at the high school as well, with an evacuation and return to the school and so forth. So we have had some practice with it. We have trained it a little bit, but as time moves on, as you know, as Josh is presenting, there are some other ways in which we can probably be a little bit more adept and a little bit better skilled at it, and that's our goal with the safety plan. And so we'll roll it out a little bit on Friday. We'll review a lot of things on Friday, but it won't be anywhere near as intense on Friday as it was last year. Last year was pretty intense.
I should know this. Do we have our safety buckets yet? I know we've
Yes.
discussed them a couple times.
Yes.
They're all set?
In the rooms, some of the door locks, the door securing devices
Yep.
exist in this building. We are in the process of getting the blocks with the rubber base
Yep.
prepared for all the other buildings as well.
Thank
And we have taken some of the measures with regards to keys. We're working on the keying at the primary school as well, which would help us as well.
Right.
So, yeah, we are taking some steps.
Great. Thank you.
I just have a quick question.
Yep.
Is there an additional means of communication outside of the intercom system in these buildings? Like, if
So-
the intercom system is not accessible, or?
We have encouraged our teachers, and at the high school, we encourage them to use their cell phones if they have the ability to cell phone and text anybody. So I've always asked to share as many phone numbers as you possibly can, have the police numbers in there and so forth. So that's one of the avenues that's available to us. As you know, we do have walkie-talkies, but not everybody has a walkie-talkie. Just the administrators, for the most part, have the walkie-talkies. I'm
The
not sure if there's a-
walkie-talkies, are they in sync with Brett, like, from
Yes.
the other buildings?
Yes. Yep. You could go to a channel where everybody would be able to speak to each other and so forth. And we do, as you know, we do have the panic alarms at the doors that go directly to the police department as well. Those are in place as well.
And then the town just bought the Code Red
Yes, so
system?
that's right. Thanks for mentioning that, Josh. The Code Red system that the town has got in place, and we talked a little bit about it at the admin meeting today, getting all of our admin to be registered on that so that anytime there's a code red, we would get that information as well, and all of our schools and all of our administrators would get it as well.
I've laid a lot of information out. Any other questions?
No, it's good stuff. Seems like the right natural progression, you know, with the training that you guys have been doing already, and to have that, you know, reunification stuff, you know, being next. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've come a long way from duck and cover.
yeah, yep.
Anybody remember the
I was just gonna say it's a little bit before our time, but I know what you're talking about.
Sorry, maybe I'm showing my age.
Anything else, Mr. Maines? You all
No,
set?
on the safety plan, nothing on the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Next up is our school committee and subcommittee reports, our accounts payable report. Lisa?
Okay, I had signed 20 batches, some on 12/13 and the rest on 12/27, totaling $402,619.93. And nothing special in there.
Okay. Any questions on any of that? Okay. We'll move on to our consent agenda. First up, we have meeting minutes for December 19th and January 2nd. We already have a couple notes on some changes for both of those. So for December 19th, on the second page, the last sentence under budget subcommittee updates should read special education costs rather than assessments. So we'll need to have that updated. And I don't think we had anything else noted for that one. Anyone else have anything else for December 19th? I'll be looking for a motion to approve from anyone other than Jillian. She was not here that night.
I'll make a motion to approve the school committee meeting minutes for December 19th, 2018, with the corrections as noted.
Thank you, Kelly. Motion by Kelly,
Second?
second by Lisa. Any other discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. And one abstain. Any opposed? Seeing none. Okay. Next up, we have our January 2nd school committee meeting minutes. Again, here we have a couple notes already brought forward by Ms. Keegan. On the first page, under the superintendent's report, the last sentence of the first paragraph there, it says preliminary net receiving is $758,000, et cetera. That should not say net. We should need to remove the net there. It's just preliminary receiving is $758,488, period. And on the second page, the last sentence of the second paragraph under other business, it says here, Superintendent Maines will meet again with the town administrator on 2/6. That is not a true statement, and we don't believe we said that. It should read, Superintendent Maines will bring the budget forward to the school committee on 2/6. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then forward it to the town on 2/7.
And then subsequently forward it to the town administrator on 2/7. Okay.
Yep, yep.
So all of that should replace what's there currently. Any other changes that anyone could see for January 2nd? None? Okay, so looking for a motion to
I'll
approve.
make a motion to approve school committee meeting minutes for January 2nd, 2019, as amended.
Okay, motion from Jillian,
Second?
second from Lisa. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Seeing none, those are approved. Next, on our consent agenda, FY 2020. 2020 already. Administrative and non-union salary wage increase. Ms. Keegan, can you maybe walk us through what we have here, please?
I did bring that for you this evening, both for administrative positions and, as you stated, the non-union positions. These are all proposed at 1.75%. And just to let you know, even on the town side, the town administrator did indicate as the department head last week that that's the same townwide.
Okay.
So it's pretty consistent. So on the first one, the proposed salary schedule for administrative positions, all are at 1.75%, with the exception of the superintendent, which is a separately negotiated contract.
Correct?
So, and the good thing about this is, you know, normally I bring it in June, that's why I've always had to do it in the past.
Right.
And this time, this will be the first time in years, which is wonderful, I can actually incorporate everything in the
All
budget.
be reflected in our
Right,
budget.
exactly, in the lines, without having to put a big line and then move, you know.
Right.
So that's the good thing about bringing it now, so I can incorporate it right in there. Does anyone have any questions on the administrative positions?
Questions, comments? So we'll vote on these separately from?
Separately, yes, please.
Okay, so looking for a motion to approve or reject, I guess, hopefully approve, the FY 2020 proposed salary schedule for administrative positions presented at the school committee meeting January 16th, 2019.
I'll make a motion to approve the Douglas Public Schools FY 2020 proposed salary schedule administrative position school committee meeting January 16, 2019.
Thank you, Jillian. Motion from Jillian.
Second.
Second from Lisa. Any other comments, discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Seeing none. Thank you, that is approved.
And the next one I have for you is the non-union. On the first page, we have paraprofessional degree, paraprofessional non-degree, ABA therapist degree, ABA therapist non-degree. That's on page 1. On page 2, we have the secretarial business office, bookkeeper, business office positions, secretarial full year, secretarial clerk school year. And as a reminder, as you know, for FY19, we did fix the categories for network technician and technology data specialist. So we have those categories for FY20 on page 3. Nope, that's page 2, sorry. On page 3, I have the tutors and substitutes. We are not recommending any changes with regard to that. And on the last page, page 4, we have the special education summer school program proposed rates and no recommendations for changes for those either. So on pages 1 and 2 for the paraprofessionals, ABAs, bookkeeper, secretarial, whether it be full year or school year, the network technician, and technology data specialist, they're all again at 1.75% for FY 2020. Proposed.
Does anyone have any questions on this? Any comments? Okay. So with that, I'll be looking for a motion in regards to this proposal.
I'll make a motion to approve the paraprofessionals, ABA therapists, FY 2020 proposed hourly rate schedule, school committee meeting January 16, 2019.
Yeah, so are
So
we
they
gonna
have to be
do-
separate or together?
Four?
I would
Separate?
say, if you don't mind, just say paraprofessionals, ABA therapists, secretarial, bookkeepers, technology, and you can say so moved after I'm done. Tutors and substitutes, and special education summer school program.
So moved.
And also, we have on here the substitutes for paraprofessionals and ABAs and teacher substitutes. They're all part of the summer program.
So moved.
So we have a motion to approve all of the previously mentioned schedules.
As presented this
As
evening.
presented here this evening.
Second.
Motion from Jillian, second from Lisa. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained?
Okay, thank you very
Seeing
much.
none. Thank you. That is all set. Okay, moving along here. Next, we have some additional staffing. So, we'll call it Neely up there?
Yeah, Neely and Mr. Bell, and,
Please.
John, you need to bring another chair, John, thank you.
I feel like we need to turn this more.
You can turn that.
Feel free.
I feel like I
Yeah.
can't see
You'll
your
have to check
eyeballs.
with our Fellini over there to make sure that he's
There you
okay
go.
with that.
You know, I don't want to take over.
You can slide your microphone down as well. to
Yeah, slide
share.
that down towards the middle a little bit.
Now we have a.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
So, as we know, Mrs. Sosha cannot be here to support the proposal for the primary school, but she is certainly here in spirit. So basically, the first proposal is, we have a student that is a Douglas resident. The student came to our attention through early intervention. The student has significant medical history that will impact the student's cognitive abilities and academic proficiency. So, in accordance with what is also occurring with the child, it could impact behavior, but that is unknown at this time. So in consideration of all of this, an IEP was developed. We did our own testing through the district. We heard what EI had to say. We looked at their data. We had observations that were conducted, and the team determined that in order for this kiddo to be safe within the school, they would need a one-to-one paraprofessional throughout the entire school day. So that is that proposal. Now, the entire school day for this child is 3 mornings weekly, because the child is a part of the preschool program. So that is the first proposal. Mrs. Nasuti, do you have anything further on that one?
I think you shared all the information that's necessary. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Anything on that one? All right.
Straightforward.
All right, so the second proposal, a little different than the type of proposals that we've had in the past. Let me give a little history on this. We can answer questions at any time for you. So basically, we go into each school year and we feel prepared. We feel prepared with general ed, special ed teachers, paraprofessionals, ABAs, therapists, whatnot. This year, for a multitude of reasons, 3 of our paraprofessionals decided to not be in our district anymore. What we did was we posted the positions on SchoolSpring, and the first couple of times, Mr. Bell was able to bring some people in. Some people did not have the skill set that we were looking for the students. Other people accepted the positions and decided that the financial compensation was not what they were looking for. So at that point, we continued to post the positions on SchoolSpring. We then posted the positions 5 times. I'd say towards the first week of December, the 3 of us started having some constructive conversation around what was occurring because of these 3 positions not being filled. Dealing with issues of noncompliance, having issues with teachers and paraprofessionals getting lunches, we were having planning time issues, people weren't able to get to their testing, all sorts of issues. We brought it to the administration, and we had a conversation about what this was looking like and the impact it was having on the overall special education program, because what we were doing was Band-Aiding, okay? What we are still doing is Band-Aiding. So we're getting it done, but not the way we wanted it done. So we made the decision right after we got back. Again, we met as an administration, we posted it one more time, and we got nothing. So this is the point I'm gonna go into our plan, but did I leave anything out on that?
That's where we're at, yep.
All right, so what we did was at the faculty meeting in January, we went before the elementary school staff, and we explained the situation. And we talked about the fact that because we were not able to fill these 3 paraprofessional positions, the other avenue that we potentially could go in is to propose another special education teacher. So the first thing I will say within this proposal is that because it says special education teacher does not mean that it only benefits special education students. I think this day and age, I know, this day and age, all teachers have students that have a variety of needs within their classrooms. So our thought process was, if we moved to 1 special education teacher per grade level, that would allow each gen ed teacher to have their own special ed teacher and their own paraprofessional. And then there would be another paraprofessional that could act as a, for lack of a better word right now, floater paraprofessional. That person would have duties, they would not be floated, they would have very specific things within their day. So after outlining this with the staff, we put a committee together. We met with the committee and we talked about the pros and the cons. We had a representative from each grade level. We had each inclusionist present, as well as Sky Blamba, who is the Flex Center teacher, so she has access to all the general education teachers and all the special education teachers. At that point,
We had some ABA, some paras also. You're
I
good.
thought
That's
I
why I'm
had
here.
it.
Yeah.
I thought I had it. We had maybe. So what we did was, after talking about the pros and cons, we went around the table and we talked about what would be best in moving forward for the school and for the kids. The majority of people agreed that another special education teacher would be in the best interest of the entire school. So then what happened was we met with the administration, we met with the union, had more forthright conversation about this, and that was the point that this proposal was written. So, do you have any further information or anything more that you want to share?
I would just say that this is the reason we've met so many different times and talked before we came here is because this has quite a big impact on our school, just how it's going to function. This year we've really struggled with our schedules, and a lot of our schedules are driven by special education based on who can be where at which times. Because they're trying to jump to too many different places. And so this kind of simplifies how many people our special education teachers are working with, allows them to do a better job working with those kids, smaller caseloads. It allows our second grade teachers to teach reading when they want to, rather than it being dictated by when third grade's teaching reading and needs the support and some things like that. We can't hire we can't find people for the 3 paraprofessional positions, and this gives us an opportunity for near equal cost. I know it's not exactly the same, but it's near equal.
Actually, my first question. So this would be so we were removing those 3 paraprofessionals?
Yes. This is to replace those permanently. So right now we have 8 inclusion paraprofessional positions. We would go down to 5. So that would give 1 per grade level with that 1 floater that Neely talked about. And so we were looking to make the cost as equal as possible, while also making sure that services are covered with our kids, that minutes are met, but also that their needs are being met. One thing that we have noticed over the past couple of years is that the number of students needing more support than inclusion can provide has increased pretty dramatically, because our inclusion program hasn't been able to be as successful as it needs to, due to schedules. And I mean, our teachers work their tails off, but it's just we're not seeing what we need to see out of the program also. So we feel like we need to try something different. Neely and I have been talking about this a lot this year, thinking 2020 trying this, but with this opportunity, with not being able to find the positions, it just seemed like, why wait if we can start moving forward with that plan now.
So I guess, so would you qualify this as kind of a change in service model, or a tweak to your service model, I guess, for special education?
It's a tweak to the service model.
Okay. And it is, I guess, is it purely reactional, or is this what you'd be going to ideally,
No,
regardless of the
Yep.
paraprofessional?
So starting in September, we had no idea that this was going to occur. So starting in September, what Laura and I started doing was we started collecting data from the special education team. And what that was projecting out a year, okay? What are your caseloads gonna look like? What is your, so they had to talk to the liaisons really behind and ahead of them. What are your caseloads gonna look like? What might your testing look like? What are we seeing for red flag kiddos that might need initial evals? What are we seeing for reevaluations? We got all that information in consideration that for 2020, we were thinking that this type of model would better suit the kids and an inclusion model. And again, like John said, this presented itself, so our attitude was, we have the data, we know that it can work for all kids, we know that it can work for all teachers, we know that we may have to tweak the schedule minimally, but at the end of the day, if we can capitalize off of this and do something sooner than later, let's do this.
So with regards to the idea of tweaking, as Neely indicated, the fact of the matter was that we just were not going to find 3 paraprofessionals. I can tell you that I looked over hundreds of paraprofessional applications, made suggestions. We had the same issue in other schools. Mr. Delaney is still looking for a paraprofessional, had a person in who would be great for the job, called her back and turned the job down, again, because of the pay scale. So we really were reluctant to come back here. We were looking and did clearly did due diligence in trying to find paraprofessionals, maintain the model through the end of the year. The problem became that we were a dog barking up the wrong tree. It just was not going to happen that we were going to get these 3 paraprofessionals. So at that point, the conversations, as Neely indicated, was we need to be able to provide services. Is there another option, and is hiring a teacher to take the place of those 3 and tweaking the model as they indicated the best way to go? And to me, there is no other alternative, because if we don't go in this direction, then we end up going back and posting for a 6th time for 3 paraprofessionals, which we know we're not going to be able to get. And if we do get somebody of an interest, they're going to turn the job down. So to me, it's the only viable, and we don't know what the outcome of it's going to be, but we know it's going to be better than what we're presently doing, which is not servicing with the 3 paraprofessionals that we can't hire.
And I will say the work around this has been extremely strategic. We've made sure that we've dotted every I and crossed every T, and that, again, it wasn't reactive, because you always have to make sure of that. We wanted to make sure that this really would be a good model moving forward, and we believe it will.
I have several questions, so
We have several answers.
if my voice cuts out, I'm sorry. So these 3 positions would be, what are the 3 paras specifically? Are they all 3 inclusion paras? Is that what they were?
So currently, we have a 2-3 inclusion para that's open, a 4-5 inclusion para, and we have one of our flex paras that's open. So we'll have to do some internal restructuring with where everybody is at. With this, there's a lot of that would have to happen. But we would be eliminating 3 inclusion paraprofessional positions. So right now we have 2 per grade. We'd go to 1 per grade with that 1 floater.
Okay, so then the other piece is, so now we're saying that 1 teacher can do the job of 3 paraprofessionals. And the reservations I have for that are that the coverage issues with duties and covering classrooms and MCAS, small groups, and oftentimes special education teachers have meetings, and then that person is not present to do the coverage that we're thinking. And that building alone has 4 lunches. So how is 5 paras and 1 floater going to be covering lunch duty? And that comes to surface because I was in it. So it goes against me. So I think in every direction of where this is going. So that's just one issue that I feel like is going to be a problem for coverage, going from 3 to 1.
And to
Coverage
speak
is
to
always
that
an issue.
A little bit, and this is, we haven't dug into all the nitty-gritty details yet, and we kind of wanted to see what direction we were going to go here before we did that. But the team that met last week, we're going to have to meet a couple more times before this person would start, and that's those are the things. At our faculty meeting, actually, people got in groups and they brainstormed what are all the concerns, what are all the questions, what are all the things we have to work out, and those were things that we heard loud and clear that we need to make sure we have a plan for. I will say that if you look at, like when I walk into a classroom, a lot of the times we have an inclusion para or 2 in there, and then there's also a flex para or 2 in there, because we have lots of different needs of kids, and so those 2 programs are both providing support there. But what I see is sometimes there's almost too many adults in one place at one time, and we're not utilizing the adults effectively, not because of anything anybody's doing, it's just our resources aren't aligned effectively. And so one of the things that we would have to do through this is to sit down and look case by case, kid by kid, and make sure students are covered throughout the day. But I think we're going to find that we have some extra hands available that can help with those areas where we need some extra help.
Well, that's just an important thing to think
Yep.
about, because
Yep.
there is a
and,
burnout.
And lunch was something that I definitely...
Nobody wants to do
Yep.
lunch duty twice in one day.
Yep,
you know?
or by themselves.
Right, right.
And so
And
we
it's
need
a
to make
safety
yes,
issue.
and so we need to make sure that those things are covered. And I don't have a fine answer right now,
Right.
but I also know
And that's
that...
fine. I just
Yep.
I want to bring every concern that I have to the
So,
table.
Jillian,
at
to
this
that point, it wasn't, the plan wasn't that this one person could do the work of 3 people.
Right.
But the plan was that with restructuring and retweaking, that a certified educator joining our staff, along with some movement of personnel rearranging, would be able to better address it. And again, clearly for the simple reason that we just were running into a brick wall, just could not get anyone in
Well,
here.
that goes
And
to
that
my
was
other point.
I was going to say, right now, we're short 3 people, and so coverage, we're Band-Aiding it.
Have to
We,
make
you
it
know,
do right.
Well, I feel like that
yeah.
this is a Band-Aid as well. So this is happening at the elementary school.
Oh, yeah.
But just hear me out why I think that this is a Band-Aid.
Sure.
Because now if we run into this at the high school and the middle school, and so paras don't want to work for the money that we offer. So now you have this change, and one of our solid paras decides that they don't want to work at the elementary school, and now they're gone, and now we can't get another one. This is going to continue to happen, and I brought this up. This is a major problem. So this could potentially be a trickle effect here. And so now we're going to just be kind of...
So I don't believe that we can respond to whether or not we find paras, and it's very difficult to be proactive. We need to respond to the needs of the kids. At the
Right,
times that they need them.
I totally agree with that.
So, I think that we don't have the luxury anymore of Band-Aiding. The term Band-Aiding and the idea and concept of Band-Aiding came up very clearly. We had a very honest discussion about that when we had our whole team meeting with general ed, with special ed, and with the paras. We're trying to avoid that. And a part of what's going to be our success is the ideas that our new staff has been able to bring to the table, and then I think the experience and the honesty that our senior staff was able to bring to the table. And the combination of that is very important. And what we did agree on is we cannot move forward with anything that acts as a Band-Aid. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one thing we're very passionate about. We're not going to do something just to say we did it. Special education and general education are changing too much now to not have the correct people in place. And you are correct. The paraprofessionals and the ABAs are I've said it before at school committee, they are the pillars of a classroom. That's without saying. But at the end of the day, this is being done because of the children.
Right. And I'm just speaking to that it comes back to that issue. So I feel like this could be a potential issue across the district, and that's something that we need to be thinking about. So if we're losing paras and we can't bring them in, we need to do something to figure out how to bring them in.
So we continually have to move. We continually have to adapt. And, it's just, let's use the flex centers, for example. The flex center started initially just at the middle school, okay? And then we saw the need at the elementary school, and then we saw the need at the high school, and then we saw the need at the primary school. So again, education goes in cycles. But beyond the cycles that naturally occur within education, we're seeing something different, and we have to respond to that difference. And the combination of people who have different skill sets, so that combination of gen ed and their curriculum experience and everything that they bring to the table, and the combination of special ed and the accommodations and modifications and differentiation, you pair that's powerful for kids, So that's our thought for this. That's our vision.
No, I see your thought. I definitely do. I just see, the potential issues that are going to be coming up the pike if we don't address this situation.
I'll just add some context from my perspective as well. I think this discussion came up during our budget subcommittee meeting a month and a half ago or so, and it wasn't even in the context of
Right.
not being able to find paraprofessionals.
Right.
It was more in the context of we're seeing more and more students requiring services.
Correct.
The variety of services, the intensity of services has changed dramatically over the years. And do we need to consider a change in our service model to address that? I think that combining with the fact we're having difficulty hiring paras, and I think that comes down to we've hired so many paras. The number of paras that we have on board now compared to 5 years ago, I imagine it's going to be double right now from what it was 5 years ago. So that to me didn't seem like it was going to be sustainable either, to keep adding paras on at that rate over time. You're going to have more paraprofessionals than teachers and all other staff, which is, we love our paraprofessionals, but I don't want to see 200 paraprofessionals in our school.
Right. No, not at all.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, to me, this does feel like it's a proactive change to our service model. I am interested to see what does that mean for our other schools, and it's part of Jillian's concern, going forward, and again, there'll be financial impacts of that, there'll be service model impacts of that, and again, just are we doing the right thing for the students? I think it's probably the ultimate question, though.
So I'll speak to Mr. Romano. You know, he's done a fantastic job of bringing the idea, slowly bringing the idea of co-teaching models into the high school. You know, and I don't want to jump the gun and have people panic when I say the word co-teaching. That's not what we're going to this year. But we have to investigate, you know, and we have to look at it, and again, it comes back to that union. You know, and this year, Mr. Romano has had great success with creating some unions. So again, it's continually looking at the data and tweaking, and that's the thing. It changes so much. Education just continually changes, you know. So we have to keep rolling with it. And what looked good 3 years ago, unfortunately, might not look good now. You know, so again, I can only preface, and I'm going to say it again. Proposal for a special education teacher is for all education at the elementary school.
If I can jump in, echoing what Brett had just said, I'm reminded of about 9 years ago, sitting where Mr. Bell was with Mrs. Urquhart, when the high school decided that it was going to go full inclusion, which it did not exist at the time. And it was a radical new change, but a process that we needed to go to in order to better serve our students. And as time went on, it worked itself out, and I think it became very effective. But as Neely's saying, now it's 9 years later, and again, is there another model, or are there some adjustments that can be made to make us the most effective that it can be? So, but I come back, Julian, to the biggest concern is the likelihood of being able to find a licensed special education teacher is greater than right now us finding 3 paraprofessionals, because it just has not happened. We've had the discussion, you're right, we've had the discussion here. We did take some modest measures this year to address that concern. I think part of having a full economy is working against us as well. There is very little in the way of, you know, in the past we've had luck with students coming out of school and wanting to get into education, but may not have got into education. We still have some of that, but not with the numbers that we've had in previous years. I don't know why that is, but we just haven't had that many. So my sense is that kids are coming out of school who might want to get an education are looking at, I can go work for Dad and make whatever they're paying, or I could, you know, go into a classroom and make what we're paying for paraprofessionals, and I think they're opting not to at this point. It is a point of frustration. It's an ongoing battle. Your point is very well taken. I think we've all seen this, and we've all been trying to prep for it.
Any other questions from the rest of the committee?
Brett, I just wanted to make one more comment if I could. The one thing that I know that has come up from both sides is the amount of time that both the regular education teachers and the special education teachers have for collaboration. And they feel that's an area that really is impacting their ability to effectively deliver the curriculum. Right now, the inclusion specialist, the special education teacher, is covering 2 grade levels. That's 2 sets of curriculum. That's, you know, 2 caseloads of students. It's, you know, so many accommodations, modifications. By going to this model, we'll now have an expert per grade level to assist the general education teachers in delivering that model. And they're going to have more time together. So when it's 3rd grade prep time, the 3rd grade special education teacher would be available to be with the 3rd grade team to talk about curriculum. Right now, that's not happening, because when 3rd grade's at specials, she's off to 2nd grade to support. Do you know what I mean? So I really think that there have been valid concerns that have been brought up over and over again, and how do we come to some resolution to support all students and provide an effective model? And right now, I think that where we can't meet the needs with paraprofessionals, bringing in a certified licensed teacher is the best way to do that.
If I could just jump in and say one more thing, because we talk a lot about paraprofessionals. I think it's important to say that we are extremely blessed and fortunate with the paraprofessional staff that we have here. They're super. They really are amazing people. So I don't want them to think that they're being minimized here. They're not. That this came about because we just could not fill positions. And it's not any kind of a statement about our paraprofessional staff, because we have a great paraprofessional staff. We're very fortunate, so.
Understood. Thank you. All right. Any other questions, comments, discussion?
Financial impact.
Yes.
So for FY19, for the 1.0 FTE special education teacher for the remaining of the school year, it would be based on a 50,000 salary. I mean, it may be less than that, but 24,863 would be the prorated based on that salary. And the estimated cost for a .27 FTE special education paraprofessional would be just 2,510 prorated and calculated at the D1 rate. There's only so many days left of the school year, so. And my recommendation with regard to funding, we would pay it from the general fund budget to the extent possible with any vacancy savings, because there's a little bit there, or the circuit breaker account. Those would be the two funding sources.
And again, the three current paraprofessional positions will be eliminated, I guess?
Correct.
They will not be filled, that is
Yeah,
correct.
Correct.
Mhm.
There's the sort of the trade-off
Yes,
of
they'll
some of the money.
partially,
That
at
was
least
good.
partially fund this, for this year, at least.
For this year, yes.
Yeah, just for this year, yeah.
Okay.
I don't want you to think that I'm not for this. I have to ask these questions so that I sleep at night.
You know,
I'm here for a reason,
If you guys didn't ask the questions,
and it's what people think, you
No,
know? People want to hear these
absolutely.
things, and if I have to ask the questions and I'm the bad guy, that's fine. I don't
Nope.
No,
You're not a bad guy.
And to that point, they've asked the question, and they've done a really good job of involving as many stakeholders as possible to get on board, to make sure we're all rowing in the same direction. And I think they've done a lot of work with that.
No, and I think too, I mean, I think that sometimes, you know, we sit up here and, you know, we approve so many things, and it's like, it's just, we approve, and we should be asking questions.
Well, we appreciate the questions, absolutely. And that actually helps educate the public as well, Jillian, so we actually appreciate
And
that.
that's what I think about when I'm sitting here. You know, somebody needs to hear that, has this question, so I'm going to ask
Yeah,
it.
it isn't always my question, it's what I think,
Right.
you know, someone at
I'm
home is
thinking about what
trying to
everyone
ask,
else
yeah.
is thinking.
Yep, so.
And,
Absolutely.
and I'd like to thank, we have several teachers and paras and special ed, gen ed, so I think it's nice to have they've all been a part of this process, and I think it's neat that as a school we're doing this together, so that's exciting.
Mr. Delaney?
Do you regret any of your approvals?
Not yet. Not yet. No, I can sleep at night, and if I didn't ask these questions, I wouldn't be able to sleep tonight, so.
We can't have that.
Can't have that. All right, we ready? You guys have any more questions?
No,
Good?
yeah.
All right.
Good. All right, I'll make a motion to approve a 1.0 FTE special education teacher for the elementary school for an estimated cost of $24,863 for the remaining school year, and a .27 FTE special education paraprofessional for the primary school for an estimated cost of $2,510 for the remaining school year, to be paid by the general fund budget to the extent possible with vacancy savings or the circuit breaker account.
Motion from Jillian. Second from Kelly. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Seeing none, we are approved. Thank you for that.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
thank you for the questions.
Thank you for the answers.
All right. Next up.
Mr. Romano will be joining us, the next two.
All right, so after Ms. Urquhart said those very nice things about me, I'm going to have to confess that I screwed up. She did. I know I didn't ask Ms. LeClaire, I didn't remind Ms. LeClaire to come tonight. She's the student council advisor, because she was at a mentoring meeting with Ms. Reber. But as I look back, I am now pretty sure I never told her to come in the first place. So I will present on the annual conference. So the student council is going to the annual conference that's held by the Massachusetts Association of Student Councils. It's going to be March 6th through 8th, and it is an overnight trip, which is why we need your approval. It's going to be in Hyannis at the Cape Cod Resort and Conference Center. We have 13 students who have applied to go, and we have 2 chaperones. Both are staff members. This is the conference that the kids go to every year. It's the one. It's the Polar Plunge one, which is the one that the Twitter pictures of the Polar Plunge. But they also do other things. There's great workshops and leadership development opportunities. A great keynote
Team
speaker.
building, bonding and stuff, yep.
Yep, and it's basically funded by the kids. There's no financial impact to the district, but other than a sub for the chaperones. So. I'd like your permission to send my kiddos out there to the conference.
Kiddos. Good?
Yeah, any questions for Mr. Romano?
No, we've done this every year, the 10 years that I've
Sounds
been
very
here. so-
familiar.
Yep, it does. I'll make a motion to approve the overnight trip for high school students to attend the MASC Spring Conference from March 6th to March 8th, 2019.
Motion from Jillian,
Okay.
second from Lisa. Any other discussion or questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Seeing none. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Am I up still?
You are again,
You are
books.
still up.
Books. Okay, so indulge me in a moment of history instruction. As I was a history teacher, yesterday was the 100th anniversary of the Great Molasses Flood of Boston.
Indeed.
Oh, wow. And you
It
have
was-
to read that book, Dark Tide.
I did read the
It's
book
the
Dark
best book
Tide.
ever
I
about
remember you
that
telling me
flood.
that.
They say you can
Yes.
still smell the molasses
Yes.
on July days.
And I've even gone in July to see.
It's also, yesterday was also the 88th day since the Great Flood of 2018. And when
Oh, don't bring that.
when the first floor flooded, we had to clean out the first floor book room. They had to replace the floor, they had to clean up the shelves and all that. Now, Mr. Vega has a little bit of Eeyore in him, and when these things happen, he's like, well, okay, we have to move all the books, or whatever. Where I'm several years younger than Mr. Vega, and therefore with my youthful enthusiasm, I see them as opportunities. And so I saw this as a great opportunity to do some spring cleaning, and he deserves it.
He's been out.
To discard of materials that we were no longer using. And so the Service Master, the company that's doing the refurbishment, they disposed of all the books that were actually damaged from the water. Anything that was kind of on the bottom shelves and some stuff that was stacked on the floor. That left about 400 boxes of books, and there's a few of them back there. Now, that's not really all that many, actually, because they only put like 3 books in a box. There's a lot of empty space in those boxes.
Those
but
books, they're heavy to carry, so
they are
put a few
heavy.
in there, it's
Yes.
less heavy.
I started consolidating them and then realized why they only put 3 in a box. So I've had the department chairs go through and identify what they still use, what they want to keep even though they don't use it, what they really feel that we can discard, or what's in such bad condition that we really shouldn't keep it. I also saved several books for the school library. I have a box of books that I'm going to offer to the town library because there are some titles in there that just aren't used anymore, but they're in decent enough shape, or there were things that were just 1 copy of this or 2 copies of that we could keep. And I made a list. And that's the spreadsheet that I think you guys got. That's only the first part because the boxes are really heavy and 400 boxes is a lot of boxes, so I couldn't quite get all the way to the back, but that is the bulk of what is now excess. Now, I had also done some research to try to sell those excess books. I had done some searching in the summer. I had used a company at a previous job that I'd been at where they kind of paid you by the pound for books, and it didn't matter really how old they were or how outdated they were. That company went out of business. I wasn't sure how that business model was really working anyway, but embezzlement appeared to also be have a role in it too. But it was disappointing because it really was a good way to get rid of materials like that. I'm trying one more company, Follett. I'm going to try them. I tried another company. I forget which one it was, but none of the books that I was trying to get rid of were in either they were too old, or, they're a couple of editions behind or whatever, or the condition just wasn't where they would accept it. So I've also posted to the Massachusetts School Administrators Association. I sent out an email to the region saying, hey, free books if you can come and pick them up. I did have one inquiry into the 8 comedies. I sent them a picture. It didn't end up being what they were looking for, but I left the deadline open until February 1st that I wouldn't discard of anything that was in good shape until then. So if they want to come and get them, they can. And the rest of them we'll recycle. And Service Master, I think Mr. Collette has worked on a plan to have them help us to recycle them. And so that's what I'm asking you to do is
the town's library use any of this?
Yeah, I did set aside some for the town library too. There were a couple of almost like local history type books that I saved for the town library and things. Yeah, some neat stuff.
We had been meaning to clean that book room out for quite a long time.
Well, it's so, you know what? It's a very daunting task when you just look at the book room, because I realized the other day, like, I have another book room that's in kind of the same shape, and I don't even want to think about tackling it. But like having them all out, it just kind of, it made more sense to kind of.
So was this Marie Kondo
rid of them.
inspired? Did I get that name right? Anyone else?
What is it?
Marie Kondo? Am I getting it right? Anyone know what I'm talking about? No? Okay.
You got me on that one.
She's like some organization guru that's very big right now, so yeah.
Well, there's some good feng shui going in there right now, so.
We used to have a organization, like Josh mentioned, that used to ask if we had any books that we wanted to sell, and we have sold them in years and years and years and years ago. That I haven't seen that company in probably 9 years come through the door, and we used to do bookbinding, and that company doesn't go through the door anymore, and so forth. But I think Brett's point is well taken. If we can make sure that rather than, if we can keep a copy of everything, they can go down to the library, they can put them in their shelves as well. And then if somebody does have an interest in coming to get them,
You're there. Yeah, they'll be there for a couple more weeks.
Which is good. So you send it out to all of Central Mass?
Yes, yep, District F. Yep.
So all the schools, all the districts all the school districts in District F got the emails, so if they want them, they can certainly come get them.
All right.
Any questions?
Any other questions? We're good. All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the disposal of the Douglas High School books deemed to have no value and the attached list.
Motion from Jillian.
Second?
Second from Lisa. Any other discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I mean, just pull some out and bring them down.
Okay.
Bills.
Next up, we have our policy for use of and improvement upon town property and facilities. So this, we talked about this a couple meetings ago. I'd gotten a request from the town to have us adopt this policy. And at first, I didn't really know what they were looking for from us, and we had discussions around, okay, do we want to just vote to approve the policy as it's written? It's not really our policy, but we don't see any issues with it. But they're actually, I think what they're really looking to do is actually have us adopt this policy. As I started thinking about that, I think this would actually step on existing policies that we already have. So I think that what we got to do is look at adopting pieces of this that aren't currently covered under our policies.
There's only a few things in there that even refer to the school.
Yeah, so I think that this is really a reaction to an incident this past summer with an existing mural was painted over, and the residents were looking to have policy in place to make sure that anytime you make updates to town properties for stuff like that there's an approval process and that people just can't do these things kind of willy-nilly. So what they look like they did is they kind of attached this repairs and or improvements to town property onto their existing use policy for the town.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think we have our own use
Yeah,
policy.
why would we
Yeah.
do any of this? I don't
But
understand
I
that.
think they're looking to have, the town is looking to have us take on the same repairs and or improvements to town property to adopt that piece of it, so that if we have historical components of our school, that there's a process in place, a policy in place that covers how we go about making improvements to those things so that we don't lose historical
So this
value.
probably should go to the policy subcommittee.
Yeah.
I believe so, and then we also have a facilities use subcommittee, I think between the two of them, or the three people that sit on those two different subcommittees to work out what do we currently have in place? Because I think the use portion of this, we probably already have covered. I think just how do we incorporate the improvements portion to make sure that we're doing something in line with what the town's trying to do? And I think it makes sense, personally, so.
Yeah, I did voice my concerns to Kevin on that request that we received, because it made absolutely no sense to me that we would adopt that whole thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think we're all in agreement, and it does make good, and we've kind of discovered some wonderful things in our buildings, and recently that kind of started from that, so, yeah, just that aspect
is that
of
what
it,
that
of
list is?
protecting
Yeah,
things,
so just to,
historical
you know,
things,
more
just
context.
that part of it makes sense, but the rest of it
Regardless of what we do
is
with
different.
policy, that the town was looking for us to provide a list of things that might qualify under this policy.
So we have a use policy, obviously, and so the only thing that we really need to do is basically adopt that last piece that they're talking about.
Around
Anything
improvements.
that's identified as historical, cultural,
Either attach
social.
that to our facilities use policy or add a brand-new policy just addressing how do we go about approving any kind of improvements to our facilities.
I would suggest a separate policy, because it's kind of really not a use thing. It really doesn't have anything to do with the use thing, and,
Yeah.
you know what I
I'll
mean,
leave
as
that to
far
our
as people
policy
coming
people.
in and, yeah, using the buildings.
We're right
All
on
right,
that.
so,
So I put at your place a listing of, we went through all the buildings and asked all the administrators to come up with their information. I provided you with what we think at this point would be the things, the things within our building that would fit that category of historical or social or cultural, that for each building. And so they're listed there for you. There are things like memorial plaques, the logos on the gym floors, trophy cases, banners, things such as that. Some historical newspapers that are in one of the libraries, some matted photographs from older times that relevant to the schools and so forth. So we've identified virtually everything, I think, for the most part. You could add under the Douglas High School, I forgot that there are 2 banners that were gifted by the class of 2006. One as you leave the building and one that's in the middle above the backboard in the gym, the larger one, which, by the way, is stealing the Detroit Tigers logo, so nobody has sued us as of yet. But they do have those 2 banners up
On
there.
TV.
But, I know. So, I don't think anybody from the Tigers organization is watching our broadcast tonight, but they have been up there since I got here, before I got here.
Could end up on Dynamic
Right.
Douglas.
But this is your list, and I wanted to make sure you had it available. I assured the town that I would have something available for them as well, and this is that list for you to review.
could we give that to, could we maybe even also post this to the district website?
Sure.
As well, and maybe a news section in there someplace?
Yep.
So
If
people
you-
are aware of
Do
kind
you
of
want me
these that
to
we're
forward this
protecting.
down to
I would think,
Ms.
yeah,
Payne, just
yeah.
the listing of the
Yeah, anyone have any
things
issue
that we've
with
identified?
forwarding this
I'll
list?
update it with those 2
I don't have an
banners, and
issue with
that'll be
that.
it.
Why not?
Okay.
And then I think if you're going to provide feedback to them that we will review and
Yes.
put our own policy together that would be linked to our use policy already.
So I believe Julie and Jillian are our policy committee. When do you guys think we could get back to them to say that we think we'd be able to have a policy in place by?
So it's up to the 2 of us to figure out what we're pulling out of it to put in with what we have?
That's what I would ask, is for you guys to examine that, put
I
together
mean, you can
a
meet,
policy.
we'll certainly meet with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
work,
Yeah, that shouldn't
work
be
with the
too-
administration and then
Yeah.
bring a policy back to us for approval.
So Julie, when can you meet?
Just only at night, unfortunately. I work during the day. So,
By the end of February, so 6 weeks, think
Yeah.
we could do?
you come up with a date.
It would have to be either before vacation or during vacation.
For you guys to meet, so when
I
do
can't
we?
meet after that.
Okay. Oh, okay, thank you.
February vacation?
It has
Yeah.
to be before the 27th.
All right.
Of February that you guys have to meet, but so we could address it at a meeting in March then, potentially.
We can sit down and try to craft a little something in
Yeah.
advance for you.
I just want to give them a rough idea when we think we can get, have something in place for them. I just
Yeah,
know
it
they're
shouldn't be
gonna-
too
By February
difficult,
vacation, I
yeah.
think, yep.
So if you guys can try to put something
to figure
together
something out. Yeah,
before
we
the end
can-
of
I can do
February,
that.
Yeah.
while Jillian's available, and then
Yep.
we can hope to have something approved by the end of March, let's say.
Very good.
So I'll communicate that to them.
Good.
Okay.
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 All
Thank
right.
you. Next, we have our school business and operation manager's report. Keek.
I have for you this evening, I have FY 2019 General Fund Budget Transfers number 7, and these were all requested by administrators.
Doing good, doing good.
Anybody have any questions?
No, looks pretty straightforward.
Make a motion to approve?
I'd love a motion to approve.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve FY 2019 General Fund Budget Transfer Number 7, School Committee Meeting, January 16th, 2019.
Motion from Jillian.
Second.
Second from Lisa. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None.
Okay, thank you very much. Also this evening, I have FY 2020 reclassifications number 6, and
FY
the
2020?
first. Oh, you know why? Yeah, 2019. Yeah, I was working on the FY 20 budget. That happens when you're working on several years at one time, back and forth. Did I do that on the other one? Nope, I didn't.
The other one was
Okay.
fine, yeah.
All right, thank you. The first two are just moving to another account. They were put in the district-wide custodian clothing allowance, and they should have gone in the district-wide grounds clothing allowance. It's one of those split positions. And the third one down is just moving, reclassing. This happens every year. The primary school, they bill us for two things. They don't separate it out, so we just have to separate every single year. We get this every year. And then all the remaining ones, we are just reclassing from all of the schools, except for the last one, all of the schools over into the FY 2019 health grant for nurse substitutes.
Yes. This also says FY 2020
Yeah.
health grant on ours.
FY 19, yeah, FY 2019, yeah. Sorry, boy, I had 2020 on the brain. It's
Budget
funny, I did
season.
one right after the other. But I must have done something about 2020 in between. That's what happens. Okay, thank you. And the last one is just having to reclass into the proper
Textbook line.
textbook line at the primary school.
So when we make a motion to approve this, do we just make a motion to approve it as amended?
Yes.
Sure, yep,
Okay.
please.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move forward on motion? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve FY 2019 reclassifications number 6, school committee meeting, January 16th, 2019.
A motion from Jillian.
Second.
Second from Lisa. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay. Thank you.
And next on the agenda, we have the FY 2020, and that really is for FY '20, the French River Educational Collaborative oil bid results. And we did pretty well, just very quickly. We went out to bid. The first time we went out to bid, we only received one bid from Santa Energy. That's what we have for FY '19. I'm not really too fond of that company, so I was glad we could throw out that bid. Their response to the bid was not responsive, was not according to 30B, a number of things that they were adding on, different fees and things which they were not allowed to do. So we had to go out to bid again. We did receive two bids, one from Santa Energy, which I was very happy to see was way out of the ballpark, and then Peterson Oil. So Peterson Oil had a bid of 2.0675 per gallon, Santa Energy 2.3457 per gallon. I've never seen such a spread. And actually, when we went out for this year's oil, when we went out to bid last year for this year's oil, there were 5 bidders. This year, we just had 2. Santa Energy won it, and the bid that they won at last year was 2.0611, which is interesting. And the spread last year between the 5 bidders was a 9-cent spread. And here you can see, I mean, it's like 32 cents or 31 cents, whatever. I mean, a really huge, not 32 cents, right. Huge difference. But the good news is that the year-over-year difference is on the 85,000 estimated contract value. It's $544.25 increase on the 85,000 gallons.
Great.
So that's fantastic. And I give you the estimated contract value of $175,737.50. So it's actually a bit less than last year. Last year's increase year over was $7,844.50 on 85,000 gallons. So going in the right direction there.
Good.
So some good news there. So we were happy, and at least we like this company, and I'm glad they bid a really high figure. So, anyone have any questions?
I'll make a motion to accept Peterson's oil bid of 2.0675 per gallon for the purchase of number 2 fuel oil for fiscal year 2020 pursuant to the French River Education Center Incorporated number 2 fuel oil invitation for bids.
Motion from Jillian. Second from Lisa. Any other discussion? None. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. Thank you. All right, one more.
Okay, one more. Last on the agenda, we have the FY 2018 Student Activity Fund audit. And if you will go to page 3, we did have a couple of things, a couple of small issues and some recommendations too from the auditors. One was that they brought up the fact that at the schools, and believe me, this is the case throughout the whole state of Massachusetts and in every school, just so that you realize, I don't know why all of a sudden it's an issue, but In school districts in the past, the principal would sign in the back, and there would be an additional signature from usually it's the secretary, of the principal secretary. So, and I understand the segregation of duties issue, but it was never a problem in the past, but the secretary is preparing the paperwork and the check, so they don't want their signature on the check, so it's just the principals that will be signing that going forward. We just have to have that worked out with the town treasurer and get that squared away. So it's not an issue of anybody doing anything, it's just a recommendation from the auditors, so said that we would take care of that. They did bring up just one instance at the middle school where, receipts came in and it took a few days to get deposited. Mrs. Osterman, the middle school principal secretary, did email the auditors and give them the explanation of why that happened. I can tell you that it does not happen on a regular basis. It was just one-time thing. So, of course, we said that wouldn't happen again because it just hasn't happened before, so. And, let's see, I'm not too sure. And then they did bring up one small issue at the high school where a yard sale fundraiser, they didn't fill out the form. So again, it doesn't usually happen. They're very, very good at the high school about doing the forms and educating people about the process, and that just was a one-time thing, and probably being, kind of a bit of a funky thing of a yard sale, fundraiser, so that's something that probably happens on the weekend, and,
How many items did you sell?
so, yeah,
100 items, that you literally list out all 100 items on the
So, and of course, Josh assured, it's just like Brian did, that we will, because we do pass out those forms, and it's just was one of those things, just a one-time thing. And one other thing that I do need to bring to you at some time in the future, not a big deal. They just happened to notice that we did not have a policy in the policy manual that I created, brought to you, I believe it was last year or the year before, just to include a policy to address the disposition of funding of deficit accounts. In the whole 7 years that I've been here, we did have that happen just one time, and we did address it. It wasn't a big deal to address it or anything, but they just want to see a policy, so we'll take care of that at some point. So overall, everything went very well. Everybody works very hard, particularly, it really is just the middle school and the high school to make sure the student activity fund accounts are operated properly. The secretaries always call me when they have any question, as do the principals. They take it very seriously, and they work very hard to make sure that everything is run properly. I can attest to that. And you know darn well with me, I would never say that if that was not true. So does anyone have any questions with regard to the FY 2018 Student Activity Fund audit?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. And that's all I have this evening.
Any other topics not anticipated to address? We didn't discuss earlier, will we do an executive session?
Yes.
Okay, we are going to have an executive session this evening.
Including Mr. Delaney and Mr. Romano, please.
Okay. Mrs. Keegan as well, or no?
She's welcome to attend if
Okay,
she wants.
Mrs. Keegan as well. Okay, so we will enter into executive session by a roll call vote. We will not come back to public session except for the purpose of adjournment. All right, with that, let's get a roll call vote to enter executive session.
Kelly Grady, aye.
Julie Mulder, aye.
Brett Argel, aye.
Jillian Kinnear, aye.
Lisa Brown, aye.
With that, we are now in executive session. Thank you, everyone.